Working in the United Kingdom carries a wide range of rights that all workers are entitled to. This short film explains your rights at work and who to go to for help if you have a question or a problem. Understanding your rights as a worker and protecting yourself begins before you even start work, during the recruitment process itself. Do not trust someone if they ask you for money to find or give you work. This is against the law in the UK. During recruitment, it is normal for employers to check your identity documents to see that you are legally allowed to work in the UK. The recruiter should give your documents back to you immediately after checking them. Do not trust anyone who wants to hold on to your passport or identity card, and never give your documents away to someone that you do not know or trust. Before you agree to start work, essential information should be explained to you, such as where you will work, who your employer is, the type of work, when you will be paid, and how much. If you have registered with a recruitment agency or labour provider, then they must give you a key information document which details this. It is good practice for employers to give you a written contract to agree before you start work. If you don't understand anything in the contract, ask questions until you are clear. If you are not comfortable, do not accept the work. If you think you have been tricked or misled during the recruitment process, contact Safer Jobs for advice. Do not trust or pay people trying to sell you false promises of work. If you feel trapped, controlled, intimidated or bullied at any stage of recruitment, then get away to a safe place as soon as you can. Call the free and confidential Modern Slavery Helpline for advice. You must be paid regularly, usually weekly or monthly, at the rate agreed in your contract, and at least at the national minimum wage, for all the hours you work. Your employer must also provide you with a printed or electronic payslip, breaking down your pay and any deductions, so you know exactly what you're receiving. There are different minimum legal rates depending on your age, and it's important that you know how much you should be getting, and what to do if you're not. You can find the minimum wage you are entitled to by visiting gov.uk and searching National Minimum Wage. If you are underpaid, then you are due this money back. Your employer must not pay you below the national minimum wage. Everyone has to pay tax, national insurance and pensions, but if your employer deducts pay or charges for things like uniforms, tools or services, then this should only be with your agreement and must not take your pay below the national minimum wage rate. Your employer must pay you for all time spent working. This includes early starts, late finishes, training, and any travel connected with the job, other than your usual journeys between home and work. If your employer provides accommodation, there is a maximum amount of rent that you can be charged. If you think that you have been underpaid, you can report this directly online to the National Minimum Wage Enforcement Team. They'll investigate, and if they find you're owed money, they'll tell your employer to pay you. If you have a question about your pay, speak to the person in charge of the work or your workforce representative. If you are not happy with the answer, contact ACAS if you are in England, Scotland and Wales, and in Northern Ireland, contact the Labour Relations Agency. Both of these helplines are free and confidential, and will be happy to arrange the services of an interpreter if you need one. If someone is forcing you to work, whether to pay back money that you owe them or for any other reason, call the Modern Slavery Helpline for advice. Staying safe and well at work is vital. Here's what you need to know. Your employer must provide you with a safe work environment that does not put your health at risk. You should be given training to understand the risks in your work and how to do your job safely. Protective clothing and equipment must be provided to you free of charge. If you are pregnant, tell your employer. Your employer must make sure that your work does not put you or your baby at risk. You have the right to not work excessive hours, and you cannot be required to work more than an average of 48 hours per week unless you have agreed to do so. You have the right to at least an 11-hour break away from work every day. and 1 day off each week, or 2 consecutive days off every 2 weeks. You are also entitled to a rest break of at least 20 minutes if you work more than 6 hours a day. There are stricter rules if you are under the age of 18. You do not have to work if you are not well enough to do so. If you cannot work because you are sick or injured, and you provide a medical certificate as evidence of this, then you are likely to be entitled to statutory sick pay paid by your employer. If you feel unsafe at work or you see something that could cause serious harm to you or someone else, speak to the person in charge of the work or your workforce representative. If you think they are not taking the right steps to make your workplace safer, then contact a health and safety executive. Nobody should be bullied, threatened, or intimidated at work. It is against the law for you to be discriminated against or harassed at work because of your age, disability, race, religion, belief, sex, sexual orientation, marriage, civil partnership, pregnancy, maternity, or gender reassignment. For help, speak to the person in charge of the work or your workforce representative. If you are not comfortable reporting it at work, or are not satisfied with how your issue has been dealt with, then contact the free and confidential Equality Advisory Support Service. The final section of this video covers your other key rights at work. You have the right to choose to join or not join a trade union of your choice, and to belong to more than one union. Information on joining a union is available on this government website. You must be given a written contract to keep which contains the main terms of your employment, for example, how much you will be paid and how many hours you should work. You should read this and ask questions if there is anything that you do not understand. If you work for a recruitment agency, before starting each job, your agency will give you details about the type of work offered, including the start date, location and hours, how long the work is likely to last, any experience, training or qualifications you may need, any health and safety risks for you, and any expenses that you might have to pay. After you have worked in the same job for 12 weeks, you should be paid the same as directly employed workers doing the same job as you. All workers are entitled to at least 5.6 weeks paid holiday leave each year, including public holidays. That's 28 days a year if you work 5 or more days per week. Your holiday entitlement builds from your first day at work, and the actual amount of paid holiday you will receive depends upon how many hours you work across the year. How your holiday pay is calculated and paid should be explained to you, but it must be paid at least at your average pay rate. Your holiday pay should be paid when you take time off. It can't be paid as extra wages instead of you taking time off work, unless it's for days above the minimum legal entitlement. If you are having a baby, you have the right to maternity pay, and you may have the right to maternity leave, and your partner to paternity leave. These rights vary due to your type of contract and how long you've been working for your employer. Employers must enrol eligible workers into a pension scheme, explain the rules to you, and contribute to support you to save for a pension. If your employer tells you that they don't need you to work anymore, they should tell you when you will no longer be required by providing a notice period to end your employment, as contained in your contract. If you are an employee and have worked for the same employer for over 2 years, you have the right not to be unfairly dismissed from your job, and may be entitled to statutory redundancy pay if you lose your job because the work is no longer needed. You may end your employment and stop working for an employer in line with the terms in your contract. When you leave, you should be given all wages that you are due, along with payment for any holiday entitlement that you have not taken. You should be given a P45 form detailing wages and tax paid while working. You will need to give this to your next employer so that you don't pay more tax than you need to. If you do not understand or think that you are not correctly receiving any rights to which you are entitled, then speak to the person in charge of the work or your workforce representative. If you are not happy with the answer, contact ACAS in England, Scotland and Wales, and the Labour Relations Agency in Northern Ireland. If you cannot leave your employer for any reason or are forced to work when you don't want to, then speak to the Modern Slavery Helpline for advice. If you, or someone you know, is being exploited at work, you can report this confidentially to the Gangmasters and Labour Abuse Authority. If you think it is an emergency, or if you or someone you know is in immediate danger, call the police on 999. If you have any questions or feedback about this film, please email info@strongertogether.org.